talk about floods because a flood wall at Asylum Down in Accra has collapsed, and with the onset of the rains, residents are very apprehensive. Water gushes freely into the homes of residents anytime it rains because of the collapsed drains. But with the expected rains in June, we also look at what preparations residents have towards the floods. And there's a special report there, the effect, how to mitigate that of flooding. Take a look at it.
Asylum Down is one of many flood-prone areas where damage to lives and property is huge during flooding in the rainy season. Asylum Down is located in the Klote-Korle constituency of the Greater Accra region. In 2015, when Accra experienced its worst floods in decades, Asylum Down was one of the hardest hit areas. Prior to the 2016 elections, the storm drain was constructed to mitigate the huge volume of water flow into people's homes. The last defense to the flood, the storm drain, collapsed last year. Until now, no effort has been made to fix it.
It's uncertain considering this breakage, this broken stuff here. I don't know what's going to happen. Big
Ben, a resident of Asylum Down, says efforts to get the authorities to repair the drain have proved futile.
We used to live with the assemblyman in this same vicinity, but after the district assembly's elections, he left Asylum Down. Anytime you see him, he is in his car. We can't just get up and go to the MP's house. That's why the assemblyman is our representative.
There are visible signs of preparations towards the rains, as this carpenter has begun re-roofing his dilapidated house. Another family was also seen applying mortar to their building. Doorsteps into people's homes are deliberately raised high to prevent water from entering their homes. A heavy downpour in February this year destroyed 10 houses in Asylum Down.
With the rains expected anytime soon, we have to start packing out. I, for instance, have left the area, but I still have some personal belongings here, so please help us.
Other flood-prone areas include the Graphic Road and Adabraka. Kofi Nto, who resides at Adabraka, says he has prepared adequately for any eventuality.
My room usually gets flooded, so I have constructed a wall about 6 to 7 feet. I expect that the wall extension would prevent the water from entering my room. This is a low-lying area, so there is usually heavy flooding.
The Ministry of Works and Housing has estimated it will cost Ghana $700 million to solve Accra's flooding.
We're being joined by Seji Sajis, Deputy Director General of NADMO, in charge of technical and reforms. And Seji, good morning. Thank you very much for your time.
Good morning.
How is NADMO doing these days?
Well, good morning to your viewers too as well. NADMO is preparing seriously for the raining season. We have started our activities. Normally, we start our activities way before the raining season. First of all, we get our information from the meteorological services as to how the rain the intensity of the rain this year. And this year, the forecast tells us that we'll have slightly above average rain this year. So it's going to be a bit more than last year, and it's going to start a bit early, so we have started experiencing some rains, especially in the northern part of Ghana.
Right.
And we started our education too as well. But most importantly, what we do with the forecast is that we normally send a wireless message to all regional ministers or district chief executives, because per our law, Act 927, the regional ministers are supposed, or they are actually the chairman of our regional disaster management committees. And this committee comprises of all agencies or actors in the region, which has a role to play when it comes to disaster occurrences.
Interesting twist there. We'll come to the structure and the preparedness, but in one of Accra's largest flood-prone areas, residents have lost their lives and property during flooding, especially during the last rain. On their part, residents have put the necessary measures in place to prevent flooding in these areas. However, it appears that residents will again experience flooding during the next rains come June because authorities do not give it the needed attention. Take a look at the story again. We'll have a conversation with Seji Saji.
I'm here at Latobiokoshi for a period of 20 years now. So the problem we are having is especially this river. Whether it's river or gutter, we don't know. But when it rains, we can't sleep here. Look at the house. The whole house is full up with water. So if you could see, there's a caterpillar there. Just yesterday, they brought it. I don't know who brought it. But what they are supposed to do, they are supposed to dip really into the gutter to bring the sand outside. But they rather expand it. So when it rains, it comes more. We don't know what to do. Kids are man here. The man went in. That is the end of him.
For 3 days, this major gutter, which appears to be the cause of the floods in the area, is being dredged to help solve the situation. Elsewhere, this would come as a sigh of relief for residents here, as they have for years wallowed in floods. However, residents no longer believe in these signs. Apparently, this isn't the first time such a dredging exercise has been conducted here.
When they brought the contractor, she brought machines to start the work. So when they were about to start the work, the machine sank into the sand, so it cannot move it again. Then they were able to manage and come and let the contractors out. So when they finish, that's the end of it. They don't come here again. Up till now. The only what they do is an annual listing. When it's getting to raining time, we at times force the assemblymen. They will organize for a tractor to come and clear inside so that whenever it rains, the water can get chance and flow.
The story here at Latobiokoshi is not different from that of other flood-prone areas in the capital. Residents here are even fortunate to have excavators desilting this particular gutter at least twice every year, but the situation persists.
That's Kwabena Idru there, my colleague there. Still have with me in studio Seji Saji, Deputy Director General at NADMO. Chief, so this is the worry and concern of people. In both stories, we see they seem to have lost hope and are taking their destiny into their own hands. Must it be the case?
I think that, especially the first story, the residents are doing the right thing under this circumstance, right. That they know that the rains are coming in and they have started preparing for the rains, right. Which is part of our responsibility to try and educate the public on what to do. Right. Because we are almost getting into the rainy season, if you are not there already, that they try as much as possible to identify maybe safe places so that in case the water, during the flooding, the water starts rising to some level, they move to those places. Right. And also to try as much as possible to secure their documents and other things as well. And more especially if the place has a history of flooding, okay, and it is so intense, it is always better to move away when the rains are coming in fast, right, and heavy. Yeah. So to some extent, you saw that the second story, we had some of our equipment on site trying to do dredging. What we do normally is that we try and identify silted drains across the country and try as much as possible to desilt. But you know, we are challenged in terms of equipment.
I want to catch, we'll come to resources and equipment. I want to talk about 2015. I had opportunity to see the June 3 disaster. In fact, I did a documentary on that. Following which, I asked a critical question: where are the evacuation centers? I'm sure you know that in disaster management, yes, we need evacuation centers. Yes. President Mahama at the time, candidate Akufo-Addo, all the big wigs, they mentioned it that it must be done now. 3 years down the line, after some 16 or so parks, I remember you remember the Loso Park and other places where it mentioned that evacuation centers. 3 years down the line, they are still bare parks, nothing. And we know what evacuation centers look like. Why are we not able to implement the promises that we make to the people?
Well, when it comes to identifying safe havens, especially evacuation centers, as you talked about, the responsibility normally rests more with the local assemblies.
Right.
That is with the district chief executive, who is the chairperson
with
of
your
the disaster.
advice, of course.
Yes, he's actually part of our setup.
Absolutely.
That is the chairperson of the disaster management committee.
Right.
We have what we call contingency plans that every district assembly has. And in that contingency plan, identifying safe havens is also part of it. And these safe havens, let me land on that. These safe havens can be school buildings, can be churches, can be other. You don't actually need maybe a park. I'm saying
yes. On this in this regard, after the June 3 disaster, 15 parks. The Kutubabi Swag Park, the one at Loso Park, a couple of them around were identified. And we said these are safe havens. And that we will put in measures to make sure that, so we watch the American movies, we see blankets, we see sheds, we see heaters and all of that. In our situation, 3 years down the line, after those promises were made, I'm asking, why haven't we been able to fulfill the promise we made to the people to protect them?
Yes, I'm saying that in every situation, especially over the years, these 3 years you've mentioned, safe havens have been identified. And it will not necessarily be parks. It could be church buildings, it could be school buildings, and these are identified by the local authorities, especially in the area where the incident is taking place or the disaster happened. Maybe normally you look at the scale. So maybe a church is identified, and what happens is that the necessary supplies that are needed for people who are brought to those safe havens are then supplied. That's what you mentioned, blankets, mattresses, buckets, and some other things that they need in order to, keep life meaningful at that very stage.
What is it? What does it look like now? I'm not satisfied. A promise was made. We know that any and everything can be identified. But in 3 years, those parks that were identified, I don't see.
Let's take the example of one of the parks.
So let's go to Sukura or Tankasila.
Let's take one of the parks. Now, in a situation where there is incident of flooding and people need to be evacuated, the park, the Sukura Park you mentioned, might not be immediately the most suitable safe haven. The most suitable safe haven might be a big church building around, a school building around, but then the park too will be used.
Let's look at the reality. The story we saw, the second one, says Latebia Okoshi is flooding around the Soko area. It floods around those places. It doesn't flood around the town council line park. It doesn't flood there because that's relatively higher. So that safer ground is suitable. I'm saying that 3 years down the line, that park was mentioned 3 years ago. Nothing has happened there to say that, and that's my question.
No, what happens is this, that during a situation like that, tents will be moving every hour. You will not see a constructed a safe haven throughout the period of the year. No, because that park also serves other purposes. So in a period like this, there will be preparations. If that is one of the places...
Are we prepared for this year?
Oh yes,
we are prepared.
We are.
On a scale of 0 to 100, what would you say?
In disaster management, it is very difficult to do a rating because disaster, as you know, has both natural causes and man-made causes. The man-made causes we have control over.
So low-lying areas, flood-prone areas, wetlands that have been sold for construction, people with illegal structures and all of that. These are conditions we can control. Have we controlled them?
Yes, to a large extent, we have not.
Let's put a percentage to it.
Yes, but to a large extent, we have in terms of planning, because it starts from somewhere. In terms of planning our cities, we have over the years overlooked certain enforcement of certain laws, allowed people to build in areas they are not supposed to build. But that is not even the problem. The problem is the enforcement, people who are responsible, making sure that people don't construct structures on certain areas that are waterways.
What advice do you give the local assemblies? Because you have a representative at the table when these permits are being granted. What advice do you give them? Don't you tell them that this is dangerous?
Yes, NADMO, as we speak, doesn't have a representative, but we have a new law now that is giving us the mandate to do other things to complement what the permitting system does.
Is that law implemented?
Yes, we are now working.
Active?
It's active. It was passed in 2016, so it is active now. The organization is in the process of concluding on the legislative instrument to actually enforce the law. And there's a critical part of the law that talks about issuing permit to meet some disaster management requirements, especially of public places, houses that are 4 stories and above, of occupancy rate of more than 15 people, and commercial buildings. That NADMO will develop some criteria to make sure that the building you are putting up meets disaster management requirements. We are in the process of concluding.
So for now, you don't go on inspecting sites with the local assemblies.
No, what we do is that we normally have the risk profile of this country of every area. So before the seasons, we visit some of the areas, especially when it comes to flood. We have a technical committee on hydromet at the head office, which is headed by an experienced hydrologist. They have gone to quite a few areas. I think personally I've received about 3 reports from the Tema area, from the Shaman area, and I think from the Fienya area. So normally they do these visits before the rainy season, and it is some of these visits that they recommend desilting. They normally recommend short-term measures, medium-term, and long-term too as well. The challenge is the long-term. That is where the challenge is.
Why is that so?
Yes, which is to a large extent beyond the remit of the NADMO in terms of actually proper planning.
Does NADMO have the money, equipment? The last time I checked, you had 2 working excavators. The rest had broken down. And you say you are ready. How do you reconcile that?
Yes, I said ready under the circumstance we find ourselves as an organization. Is
the circumstance favorable to those whose homes may be swept away by the rains?
We don't wait to have everything in place before, because our responsibility is to make sure that any time that disaster strikes, we are there before, during, and after.
You are always accused. Does it not worry you? You're always accused that you don't do your work, and it's because you don't have the resources flatly.
Yes.
So you are always accused. Does it not worry you?
There are always challenges. I'm sure in every sector of this economy, there are always challenges.
This is life and
is not different. I think every sector affects people's life too as well. NADMO is not an exception. There are challenges. We inherited an organization.
Showing on the screen now the broken down excavators.
That's the organization we inherited, with a lot of broken down equipment and vehicles. And that's the circumstance. We are trying our best to get the situation rectified. But whilst we are doing that, we are also making sure that we are carrying out our core mandate of making sure that we are the first response organization when it comes to disasters and similar emergencies.
There's always been that question of handing NADMO jobs to party people, not necessarily technical people. What do you say to that?
Well, that is not the case. I mean, I work with very efficient and competent technocrats who have been in NADMO. They have spanned the duration since NADMO was set up. These technical people have been there up to this point. As to recruitment into NADMO, nobody in the recruitment process brings in political. Well, people belong to political parties, but I'm sure if somebody is coming to look for a job, I mean, political party consideration might not be.
Do you vet them to know that they are properly qualified to do this?
Oh, yes.
You vet them.
Yes.
In this day and age, let's wrap up this way. In this day and age of social media, in terms of disseminating information and education and sensitization. I checked your social media page prior to this conversation. Yeah. You had less than 3,000 people there in a country of 29.6 million.
Yes.
What is LADMO doing on the social media front?
We are just, we inherited a very challenging organization, and you have shown some of the challenges as well. It's reflected in other aspects too as well. We are completely restructuring our communication wing of the organization, and you have seen 3,000. That is an
less
improvement.
Than 3,000.
Yeah, less than 3,000. That's an improvement, but we are pushing and making sure that our communication outfit becomes very strong, especially our relation with the larger populace. So we are working on that. There's a new program restructuring our communication wing.
That's your camera there. Those who are scared about the rains that are coming up, their property, their lives, it may not be their fault. They got their legitimate land, they built in a high place, but somebody is building an illegal structure somewhere, low-lying area. What's your assurance to them? That's your camera.
Yes, I will tell people that if you are already living in a flood-prone area, depending on the intensity of the floods over the years, you please move away. If the rain starts, you please move away. Right. And during the floods too, you should try as much as possible to make sure your, vital documents, right, medical cards and all those things are placed at very safe places too as well. And make sure you monitor information from the media and other social media networks about the rainfall
That's their
patterns.
Responsibility. What is your responsibility to them?
Yes,
what
our
assurance?
responsibility.
I want an assurance for my people.
Yes, our responsibility, I'll give out these numbers. Our responsibility is that as soon as already we have started the process of getting people sensitized about what to do and how to go about it, who to contact when what happens. Right. But people should be rest assured that when they call on LADMO, we have a 24-hour standby search and rescue team. And the hotlines, if I can put them out, if I'm permitted to put them out, 0299 350030. Okay. Then 0299 350244. Then we have 020 201 14040. I don't know if I could take it again. Right. Yes.
Maybe the first one.
The first one. Okay. The most probable, the 020 line. 020 201 14040. So citizens or people should be rest assured that when they call any of these numbers, there's a 24-hour standby rescue team. And we are already in collaboration with the 48th Engineers Regiment of the Ghana Army, the Ambulance Service, the Ghana Police, and the Ghana National Fire Service.
Seji Saji, thank you very much for your time, and I'm grateful. I wish you all the best. And that's the conversation there. But yesterday, something happened on the campus of the University of Ghana, Legon. We'll take a break. When we return, we'll show you that, and then we'll have a conversation briefly whether or not it's become necessary for us to have a mixed halls in all our universities or have the predominantly male halls. We'll be right back after this break.